because I'm afraid of Chinese, Han Chinese. I'm afraid of government, so I can't speak.
Uyghurs were subjected to eliminate as a nation under China's ethnic cleansing policy. Mass killing of Uyghurs in East Turkistan repeated almost every 10 years. Recent biggest uprising of Uyghurs were Barin incidents in 1990s, Hulja incidents in 1997, and the July 5th incidents in 2009. All of these peaceful protests demanded justice, freedom, and peace from the Chinese government were faced bloody crackdown and resulted mass killings of Uyghurs. Although Uyghurs' protests in July 5th was turned to ethnic clash between Han Chinese and Uyghurs, Uyghurs believed that this was not simply ethnic problem between these two nations or Western Uyghur democratic movement breeds climate of hate against the ethnic Han Chinese as China tried to explain it. It is a consequence of 60 years of repression and the colonial policy of China, said Uyghur leader Rabia Kadir, who was imprisoned 6 years in China and exiled to United States in 2005. Uyghurs in Urumqi, the capital city of East Turkistan, went to street, raised the red Chinese national flag, demanded justice. But China became too quick to accuse them as a separatist, despite the fact that protesters raised the Chinese national flag instead of East Turkestan flag. It's impossible for Uyghurs to live together with Han Chinese in the region, as there were harsh Chinese government oppression and extreme ethnic Han Chinese nationalism against the Uyghurs. Chinese government believed that key to success of colonialism in the East Turkestan is to wipe out Uyghurs as a nation by using their military power, oppressive policy, and aggressive Han Chinese demographic expansion. Although Uyghurs desperately dreamed independence and freedom, they were helpless and there were no hope for Uyghurs' independence at the moment. But Uyghurs believe that key to gain freedom and justice is to fight against the evil regime until the end. Uyghurs stand up against the huge military power to let China know that there will be no peace and harmonized society without justice and freedom. However, Chinese army opened mass fire to protesters. Most of the Uyghur protesters were killed, arrested, or are missing. As a result, protests turned into violence. Uyghurs attacked armed police forces, burned police cars and street bus. Ethnic Han Chinese attacked Uyghurs to support their government forces as used to be. Ethnic Han Chinese armed with metal pipes and shovels attack Uyghur residential areas, killed any Uyghur that they can find. So many Uyghur children and women were killed. Chinese army closed their eyes and let those ethnic Han Chinese mobs free riding. But armed Chinese police searched every Uyghur home, arrested male over age 15. That's the reason why these mothers went to street in July 6 and 7, asking the whereabouts of their husbands and the children taken from home. In Shaoguan toy factory of Guangdong province triggered the long historical hatred and the political economic problems of Uyghurs. In recent years, the Chinese government has been forcing young Uyghurs, primarily girls, against their wills to go to China's coastal areas to work in factories as a cheap labor as part of their scheme of assimilation. Last May, they brought 600 Uyghur workers to a toy factory in Shaoguan. The factory may have laid off some Chinese workers to make a room for them. One laid off worker started a rumor that those newcomer Uyghurs raped Chinese women. The Chinese workers believed this rumor easily because of the constant portrayal of Uyghurs as bad criminals, terrorists, and the lazy minorities in East Turkestan by the state media, despite the truth that Uyghurs were colonized nation by China. You are watching video that thousands of Han Chinese mobs are attacking the Uyghur workers' dormitory at midnight 2 o'clock, killing 57 Uyghurs, including 2 girls, and injuring more than 300, according to Uyghur sources. They belong to the land of East Turkestan. The land has abundant oil, gas, cotton, coal, and other natural resources. East Turkestan was occupied by China, and the name has been changed to Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in 1949 by the Chinese government. Xinjiang means new dominated land. Uyghurs had empire and the Turkish kingdoms before the Manchu invaded. During the Manchu invasion period, the Uyghurs revolted 42 times and expelled the Manchus from their motherland. They found an independent kingdom in 1864, but for fear of Russian expansion into East Turkestan, Great Britain preceded the Manchu court to conquer East Turkestan. The money for the Manchu invasion was granted by the British banks at the time. East Turkestan was annexed by Manchu Empire once again in 1884. However, in 1933 and in 1944, the Uyghurs were established again an independent East Turkestan Republic. But these independent republics were overthrown by the military intervention and the political intrigues of the collaboration of Soviet Union and the Red China in 1949. Uyghurs fell under Chinese communist rule since then. In 1954, to greater control East Turkestan, Chinese President Mao Zedong sent 175,000 soldiers in one set as a Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, known in Chinese as Bing Tuan. Despite non-stop unrest among the Uyghurs, Bing Tuan expanded its power as an independent kingdom. Presently, from an initial 175,000 soldiers, it has grown to 2.5 million members and controls 74,000 square kilometers, in which are 5 major cities in East Turkestan. They also report directly to Beijing and run their own courts, hospitals, colleges, TV stations, and newspapers. If anything happens in East Turkestan against the Chinese occupation, they will step out and counter East Turkestan independence movement. According to Article 49 Fourth Geneva Convention, the occupying power should not deport or transfer parts of its own civilian population into the territory it occupies. However, China aggressively pouring millions of Han Chinese population into East Turkestan every year. Chinese statistics from 2005 show non-Han nationals are 10,960,490 people in East Turkestan, includes 1,250,000 Kazakh people and other minority nations. This indicates that non-Han nations in East Turkestan increased slightly more than 2 times compared to the 1950s. The Han Chinese population was 300,000, only 4% of the total population in 1949. It increased to 7,800,000 in 2005, according to 2005 statistics published by Xinjiang officials, and this indicates that the Han Chinese population increased 26 times compared to the 1949. Abundant in natural resources and wealth, East Turkestan is attracting millions of Han Chinese settlers today. But there are no chance for Uyghurs to benefit from this wealth, and there were no chance for Uyghurs to get out of poverty. So-called Chinese government Western development plan in East Turkestan is only to build residential constructions for Han Chinese settlers and railroads, pipelines to transfer East Turkestan's natural resources to inland China, highway constructions, airlines, railroad constructions as well to facilitate migration of millions of Han Chinese settlers into East Turkestan. Oil and gas are abundant in East Turkestan. Reserves are estimated at 20.9 billion tons of oil and 10.8 trillion cubic meters of gas. Proven reserves of oil and gas reach 3.9 billion tons and 1.4 trillion cubic meters according to Chinese media. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the roadmap to peace, freedom and security for every nation and every human being. But Uyghurs were excluded and never had a chance to enjoy these basic rights. Speaking mother language rights of Uyghurs were banned. All Uyghur daycares were shut down in major cities and built Chinese daycares. Not fluency in Chinese language is the Chinese government's explanation for the high rate of unemployment among Uyghurs. However, it's used in fact as an excuse for China to eliminate the Uyghur language and intensify the assimilation of Uyghurs. Although Uyghur university students and college graduates are all fluent in Chinese language, they still suffer from discriminated hiring policies against the Uyghurs. Some employers openly put a sign on their company doors such as "Uyghurs are not accepted." Mosques are not allowed to operate Quranic schools. Those under 18 are not allowed to enter a mosque. And religious teaching schools are not allowed in East Turkestan. Uyghur cultural heritage like Old Town in Kashgar was destroyed. Under intensive ethnic cleansing policy of China, 370,000 Uyghur babies were killed in 30 years in East Turkestan through forced abortion, and put thousands of Uyghur mothers' health at risk. For about 46 times, Chinese army carried out nuclear tests in East Turkestan. As a result, 1,480,000 people are exposed to radiation, and 190,000 of them were killed. Uyghurs are still suffering from the damage of radiation. But Chinese government was not satisfied and created another ethnic cleansing policy, the forced relocation. Since 2002, Chinese government launched forced relocation policy of young Uyghurs, mostly unmarried Uyghur women aged between 14 and 25 to inland China, to aggressively assimilate Uyghurs and to reduce Uyghur population in East Turkestan, and replace it with millions of Han Chinese every year. Uyghurs were sold again for political deal between Washington and Beijing. China got big green light to genocide Uyghurs with excuse of war against terrorism, and implemented state terror in East Turkestan. Secretly, publicly arrest Uyghurs and executed countless of Uyghurs with various excuses. Entire Uyghur nation are suffering under this fake claim. Any kind of Uyghur resistance activities were accused with terrorism and subjected to public execution, no matter how peaceful they were. The Chinese government blamed World Uyghur Congress, led by Uyghur human rights leader Rabia Kadir, for July 5th riots in East Turkestan. Rabia Kadir denied that she instigated Uyghurs in East Turkestan. China could not show up any credible proof yet. Uyghur human rights protesters all over the world, Turkey, Canada, Japan, USA, and the European countries protest against China's bloody crackdown, call international community to speak up for Uyghurs, demand UN independent investigation. Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan said the event taking place in China is a kind of genocide, but other parts of the world remain silent as they exchange human rights to dollar. State terror, genocide against the Uyghurs are continuing in East Turkestan. Uyghurs believe around 10,000 Uyghurs are missing. More than 4,000 Uyghurs were arrested, and facing inhuman treatment. It is not clear exactly how many Uyghurs were executed, since Chinese government always hiding the truth.